Famous face, familiar story, right? Not quite. Beneath the fame are the untold details, the strange facts, the moments you never saw coming. It's time to look a little closer, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the unexpected.
In the final years of his life, Galileo Galilei endured complete blindness. By the time he was in his early 70s, his eyesight, which had gradually deteriorated due to cataracts and glaucoma, failed entirely. This was a cruel twist for a man whose life's work had been so deeply rooted in observation. He had revolutionized astronomy by turning the telescope skyward and revealing the true nature of the cosmos. Yet, even as darkness closed in around him, Galileo's intellectual vision remained sharp. Despite losing his sight, Galileo continued to write and work, relying on assistance and dictation to bring his thoughts to paper. His most famous late work, Discourses and Mathematical Demonstrations Relating to Two New Sciences, was completed during this time. It laid the groundwork for modern physics, particularly in mechanics and motion. His blindness didn't dampen his scientific curiosity or his determination to contribute. On the contrary, it seemed to deepen his focus and resolve. Galileo's perseverance in the face of blindness also came at a time of personal hardship. He was under house arrest by order of the Inquisition for defending the heliocentric model, which placed the sun at the center of the universe rather than the Earth. Isolated, aging, and blind, Galileo might have easily retreated into silence. Instead, he pressed on, relying on memory, reason, and his earlier notes to shape new ideas. His later works reflect a mind undimmed by the loss of sight, clear, methodical, and still pushing the boundaries of knowledge. His story stands as a powerful reminder that science is not only a matter of what can be seen, but of how we think. Galileo's blindness did not extinguish his brilliance. It illuminated just how far the mind can go when vision is turned inward.
In 1968, Andy Warhol, the enigmatic figure at the center of the pop art movement, was shot and nearly killed in a shocking act of violence that forever changed the course of his life and work. The shooter was Valerie Solanas, a radical feminist writer and the founder of the Scum Manifesto, Society for Cutting Up Men. Solanas had a complicated and strained relationship with Warhol. She had once acted in one of his underground films and had given him a script which she believed he had stolen or dismissed. Paranoid and increasingly unstable, she arrived at Warhol's studio, The Factory, on June 3, 1968, carrying a gun. Inside the factory, Solanas shot Warhol 3 times, hitting him in the chest, spleen, stomach, liver and lungs. She also shot art critic Mario Amaya, though his injuries were less severe. Warhol was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and for a time, his life hung in the balance. He was declared clinically dead at one point, but was revived by emergency surgery. The damage was so extensive that he had to wear a surgical corset for the rest of his life, and he lived in chronic pain. The shooting had a profound impact on Warhol, not just physically, but psychologically and artistically. After the incident, he became more reclusive and cautious, withdrawing from the chaotic, open-door atmosphere that had once defined the factory. His art, too, shifted. While still bold in concept, it took on more somber, reflective undertones in some cases. The event marked a clear dividing line in his life, before and after the gunshots. Valerie Solanas turned herself in shortly after the shooting and was arrested. She was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and spent time in psychiatric institutions. Her manifesto and the attack on Warhol later became the subject of debate, analysis and dramatization. But for Warhol, the trauma was deeply personal and long-lasting. The incident underscored the volatility of fame, the blurred lines between art and life in Warhol's world, and the unpredictability of the era's underground scene. It also made Warhol more cautious, perhaps more mortal, in the eyes of those who had seen him as a detached and untouchable cultural icon.
Benjamin Franklin was not only a founding father of the United States, but also a brilliant inventor whose creations have left a lasting legacy in both science and daily life. Among his most famous and impactful inventions was the lightning rod. At a time when lightning strikes were poorly understood and often devastating, Franklin's curiosity about electricity led him to discover that lightning was in fact a form of electrical discharge. To protect buildings from lightning damage, he designed the lightning rod, a metal rod mounted on rooftops and connected to the ground by a wire, allowing the electrical charge to safely dissipate. This simple yet revolutionary device dramatically reduced the number of fires caused by lightning and is still in use today. Another practical invention Franklin is known for is the bifocal lens. As he aged, he found himself constantly switching between two pairs of glasses, one for reading and one for distance. Frustrated by the inconvenience, he ingeniously combined the two by cutting the lenses in half and joining them, the upper half for seeing far and the lower half for reading. These became known as bifocals and remain a common solution for people with presbyopia, the age-related condition Franklin experienced. One of Franklin's more unusual but artistically significant inventions was the glass harmonica. Inspired by the sound of musical glasses, wine glasses filled with water and played by rubbing the rims, he created an instrument that mechanized and refined the concept. The glass harmonica used a series of glass bowls of different sizes mounted on a rotating spindle, played by touching them with wet fingers. It produced an ethereal, haunting sound that fascinated 18th century audiences. Composers like Mozart and Beethoven even wrote music for it, though the instrument eventually faded into obscurity. Through these inventions, Franklin demonstrated not only his keen intellect and creativity, but also his enduring desire to make life better, safer, and more interesting. Whether protecting homes, helping people see clearly, or enriching the world with music, his contributions continue to resonate far beyond his time.
Dr. Seuss, born Theodore Seuss Geisel, is one of the most beloved children's authors of all time, yet he harbored a surprising and ironic truth. He was reportedly afraid of children and never had any of his own. While his whimsical rhymes and imaginative characters have captivated generations of young readers, Geisel himself admitted that he was uncomfortable around children in real life. He often found them unpredictable, messy, and overwhelming, which made him anxious rather than inspired when dealing with them face to face. Despite this unease, or perhaps because of it, Geisel created stories that connected deeply with children in a unique and lasting way. He believed that kids deserved books that didn't talk down to them, stories that were both fun and intelligent. This approach led to timeless classics like The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, and Oh, The Places You'll Go, which blended rhythmic storytelling with clever wordplay and subtle moral lessons. His work respected children's intelligence while sparking their imaginations, even though he preferred to keep his distance from them personally. Geisel's decision not to have children also extended into his personal philosophy. When asked about it, he once quipped, "You make them, I'll amuse them." His wife, Helen, often joked that his books were his children, and many who knew him said he poured his energy into his work the way others might into parenting. In later years, he married Audrey Geisel, who had children from a previous marriage, but even then, he never truly assumed a parental role. Ultimately, Dr. Seuss's legacy is a fascinating contradiction, a man who didn't feel at ease with children, yet whose creations brought joy, laughter, and inspiration to millions of them. His life proves that understanding and entertaining young minds doesn't always require personal closeness. Sometimes, imagination is enough to build a bridge.
Florence Nightingale is widely remembered as the founder of modern nursing, but fewer people realise that she was also a pioneering statistician who made groundbreaking contributions to data visualization. During the Crimean War, where she gained fame for dramatically improving sanitary conditions in British field hospitals, Nightingale became increasingly frustrated by the military and government's disregard for medical statistics. To make her case undeniable, she turned to the power of visual data, an innovative approach at the time. One of her most influential statistical achievements was the creation of what we now recognise as an early form of the pie chart. Specifically, she developed a type of polar area diagram, often called a coxcomb chart, to illustrate the causes of death among soldiers. These charts vividly demonstrated that the majority of deaths were not due to battle wounds, but from preventable diseases caused by poor sanitation. By presenting the data visually, she was able to make a powerful and immediate impact on both policymakers and the public, something raw numbers alone had failed to do. Nightingale's use of statistics wasn't limited to war hospitals. She applied her methods broadly in public health. using data to advocate for hospital reform, sanitation improvements, and better living conditions in urban areas. Her analytical approach laid the foundation for modern evidence-based healthcare, where policy and practice are guided by statistical outcomes. What's remarkable is that her statistical work was done during a time when few women were accepted in scientific fields, let alone pioneering them. She was elected the first female member of the Royal Statistical Society and later became an honorary member of the American Statistical Association. Florence Nightingale's legacy therefore extends far beyond nursing. She was a visionary who saw the power of numbers to save lives and used data not just to persuade, but to transform society.
Charles Darwin, the father of evolutionary theory, led a life filled with scientific inquiry, but one of his most personal and persistent concerns stemmed from a deeply intimate decision. He married his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood. The two shared a warm intellectual relationship and had grown up closely connected through the prominent Darwin-Wedgwood family line. At the time, cousin marriages were not uncommon among the British upper class, but Darwin's later work in biology and heredity made him acutely aware of the potential consequences of such unions. As Darwin delved into the mechanics of evolution and natural selection, he became increasingly troubled by the implications of inbreeding. He understood that breeding closely related individuals could potentially increase the risk of inherited diseases or undesirable traits, and this worry was not just theoretical for him, it was deeply personal. Darwin and Emma had 10 children, 3 of whom died in childhood, and several others suffered from frequent illnesses. These losses haunted Darwin and intensified his fears that his children's health issues might be the result of his consanguineous marriage. In fact, Darwin's concern over this issue ran so deep that he conducted studies on plant inbreeding, using self-fertilizing plants to observe the effects of genetic similarity over generations. These experiments supported the idea that inbreeding could weaken offspring, reinforcing his private anxieties. He even went so far as to include a questionnaire about cousin marriage in one of his scientific surveys, seeking broader evidence on whether such unions affected fertility and child health. Despite his worries, Darwin remained devoted to his family, and Emma was his emotional anchor throughout his life. Their marriage was marked by deep mutual respect and affection. But the irony remained striking. Darwin, the man who illuminated the laws of heredity and variation, found himself at the emotional crossroads of love, family tradition, and emerging science. His marriage to Emma is a poignant reminder that even the greatest scientific minds must navigate the intersection of knowledge and personal life.
One of the most ironic and little-known facts about Thomas Edison, the prolific inventor of the electric light bulb, is that he was reportedly afraid of the dark. This detail about his personal life has long intrigued historians and biographers, offering a curious contrast to his public image as a man of science and innovation. The very individual who brought electric illumination into homes and cities around the world was said to have an aversion to the very thing his invention helped to eliminate: darkness. Edison's fear of the dark is often linked to his obsessive drive to conquer it. His intense work on electric lighting, culminating in the development of a practical, long-lasting incandescent bulb, was not only a scientific pursuit but possibly also a psychological one. Darkness, in his view, was something to be overcome, not merely lit. His laboratories in Menlo Park and later in West Orange were famously well lit, often operating around the clock under the bright glow of artificial light. It's believed that Edison found comfort in constant illumination, surrounding himself with the very thing that banished shadows. This personal quirk adds a deeper, more human dimension to Edison's legend. While he's remembered for his more than 1,000 patents and his relentless experimentation, the fear of darkness reveals a vulnerable side. It may have even fueled his intensity. He wasn't just trying to make life easier for others, but perhaps also for himself. His invention of the light bulb didn't just change the world, it may have helped him sleep at night. In a way, Edison's legacy is shaped not just by what he invented, but why. His possible fear of the dark didn't hold him back. It inspired him to reshape the world. And in doing so, he turned a personal fear into one of history's most transformative technologies.
Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist and actor, was not only known for his charisma and philosophy, but also for his unbelievable speed. So fast, in fact, that traditional film cameras often struggled to capture his movements. In several of his early screen tests and action scenes, Lee's punches and kicks appeared as mere blurs, making it difficult for audiences to see what he was actually doing. Directors and cinematographers were astonished. The human eye couldn't track his strikes in real time, and neither could the camera. To solve this problem, filmmakers had to do something almost unheard of in action cinema. They slowed down the camera during fight scenes. Normally, action scenes are sped up to appear more intense or exciting, but with Lee, the opposite was necessary. His movements had to be filmed at higher frame rates and then played back at normal speed, just to make the choreography visible. Without this adjustment, his lightning-fast punches and kicks looked like jump cuts or vanishing tricks rather than real martial arts. This astonishing speed wasn't just for show. Bruce Lee's quickness was a result of intense training, an obsession with efficiency, and an understanding of body mechanics far ahead of his time. He stripped down traditional martial arts to their most practical and explosive elements, creating his own philosophy and system known as Jeet Kune Do. His goal was to eliminate wasted movement. Every strike was direct, intentional, and devastatingly fast. Lee's speed became part of his legend, blurring the lines between myth and reality. Stories abound of him snatching coins from people's hands before they could close them, or landing punches in the time it took an opponent to blink. Whether in real life or on film, his movements were so fluid and fast that he seemed almost unreal, more like a special effect than a man. In the end, filmmakers had to adjust their tools and techniques not to make Bruce Lee look better, but simply to help the world see what he was really doing.
Ludwig van Beethoven is renowned for his intense passion, revolutionary compositions, and fiery temperament, but one of the more dramatic and oft-repeated stories about him claims that he once performed a piece so loud and powerful that it literally cracked glass. While this tale veers into the realm of legend, it reflects the larger-than-life energy Beethoven was known to unleash during performances, especially in his prime. Beethoven was not just a composer, he was also a virtuosic pianist whose playing style was described as bold, aggressive, and emotionally explosive. Accounts from his contemporaries often mention the force with which he struck the keys, shaking the very frame of the piano and pushing the instrument to its limits. His performance style was known to be deeply physical, and as his hearing began to deteriorate, he often pounded the keyboard with even greater intensity, straining to feel the music through vibrations. The claim about shattering glass likely stems from these eyewitness accounts and the dramatic impact of his music in small, echoing performance rooms where the volume and resonance could be overwhelming. While there's no verified scientific or historical evidence that glass was actually broken during a Beethoven performance, the myth persists as a symbol of his raw musical force. It echoes the kind of emotional and physical power audiences felt when watching him play, a sense that the music was not just heard but physically felt. In a broader sense, the story illustrates how Beethoven broke more than just musical norms. He shattered expectations. He composed for the full emotional spectrum, often adding dynamic contrasts and rhythmic force that made his work stand out in an era of more refined classical restraint. Whether or not a pane of glass ever cracked, his music undoubtedly broke barriers, leaving audiences moved, shaken, and forever changed.
Before Marilyn Manson became a controversial figure in the world of rock music, he pursued a very different path, journalism and theatre. Born Brian Hugh Warner, he studied these subjects at Broward College in Florida during the late 1980s. His interest in journalism stemmed from a fascination with media, culture and communication, all of which would later inform the provocative themes he explored through his music and public persona. While in school, he even worked as an intern at a local music magazine, interviewing bands and immersing himself in the world he would soon become part of from the other side. Theatre was another crucial influence. Manson's flair for dramatic presentation, disturbing visuals and performative shock can be traced back to his time studying the stage. He learned not only about acting but also about how to use costumes, lighting and narrative to craft an immersive experience, skills that would eventually define his on-stage identity. His transformation into Marilyn Manson, a name created by combining Marilyn Monroe and Charles Manson to critique the duality of fame and infamy, was as much a theatrical performance as it was a musical evolution. His background in journalism also shaped his sharp media instincts. Manson understood how the press worked, how controversy fueled attention, and how to control a narrative. He frequently turned interviews and media appearances into performances themselves, often walking the line between character and reality. Rather than being manipulated by the media, he manipulated it, provoking reactions, igniting debate, and challenging norms with full awareness of how it would be received. This foundation in writing and theatre gave Marilyn Manson a unique edge. He wasn't just a musician with a taste for the macabre, he was a calculated artist who used every tool at his disposal to create a fully realized, often unsettling persona. Behind the shocking makeup, dark lyrics, and intense performances was someone who understood storytelling, spectacle, and the power of a well-constructed message.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed diving into the lesser-known side of these celebrities, but the story doesn't end here. Next up, we're pulling back the curtain on celebrities both past and present. You won't want to miss. Stay tuned.